What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us today. This is Raul Bolivar from Flipping Miami, by the way. But today we have Matt Theriault on the show, and I'm honored to have him. He's one of the guys that probably has influenced a ton of real estate investors, wholesalers through his podcast, his courses, Epic Pro Academy, Epic Real Estate. Awesome dude. I've been to some of his events, and I'm just so happy to have him on. He shares so much information all the time, and yeah, it pretty much needs no introduction, but I gave him one, and so yeah, we'll just kind of jump into it. Matt, thanks for coming on, brother.
You bet, Raul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Congrats on
So,
the show.
yeah, thank you. So yeah, we'll kind of just jump into it, and I guess give the listeners some background on you, and let's say that they've never heard of you before, never seen some of your stuff. I guess tell them a little bit about what you've done and kind of how you're helping people nowadays.
Sure. Yeah, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years or so of my life in the music business and did really well over there until the digital download came along and turned that whole industry upside down. And at the age of 34, I found myself bankrupt, divorced, and bagging groceries and had to start life all over again. So I really had missed my money, and I knew I had to learn something new because entertainment was no longer an option. So I just kind of, after about 6 months of research, I stumbled upon real estate. It was actually the grocery store manager of all people that pointed me in this direction. He had said, Matt, if you really want your money back, real estate, it's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, the final frontier. Okay. So that means that's it. And then he said the average person. I was like, well, I feel a little bit below average. So who am I to shoot for the stars? And so I was like, let's do it. So I went and did what I thought was the logical thing to do. Went and got my real estate license to become a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And it took me a few years to figure out that if this is where the money's at, I'm probably sitting on the wrong side of the desk. So I made a transition from being agent to investor, stopped representing other people in their transactions and only representing myself as the buyer or the seller.
Yeah.
And got that little book. You've probably never heard of it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Little purple book and yellow letters on the front. It's really difficult to find, and almost no one's ever heard of it. But really embrace this concept of passive income, this escaping the rat race formula to where you get your passive income to exceed your monthly expenses. And that really resonated with me at the time because in the music business, I had a big bank account. I had big checks coming in, but I was really only as good as my last month's billing, right? So I had to constantly produce new music and new records and run new campaigns. And there wasn't a whole lot of residual income coming from there. And so just the shelf life of music was getting shorter and shorter. So you had to keep on producing new stuff. So this whole idea of having enough passive income to pay your expenses, that started to become a much more appealing option for me than just having a big fat bank account like I was striving for before. And so I just went and pushed all my expenses down as low as I could get them and started investing only in passive income. And in less than 4 years, I got that passive income to exceed my expenses. And, per the book's definition, I was wealthy. I was free.
Yeah.
Wasn't rich. Like I wasn't traveling the world. I wasn't driving a Porsche and I wasn't, living in a luxury house or anything, but I didn't have to go to work. And I knew that if the quote unquote digital download of real estate ever comes along, I would still be just fine. Right. And so, when your network, your friends and family notice that, hey, you used to be bagging groceries and now you're playing golf on a Tuesday. What happened? How'd you do that? Yeah. So a lot of lunches, a lot of coffees for people to pick my brain, and just thought, well, maybe I can go and teach this stuff too while I do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And so we started a podcast. Long story short, started a podcast and got into the world of internet marketing and discovered this thing called a membership website. Like you could just put your lessons behind this membership portal. You could sell it and people will just buy it. And I was like, okay, that sounds good too. And that wasn't quite as easy as it was laid out to be. No. But here we are, I don't know, probably 9-10 years later. And we have a thriving education business. We have a thriving turnkey business. We do probably 20 properties a month there. Awesome. We're ramping up that. I think we're going to hit 30 this month actually, but we're averaging 20. And then still buying and holding my own portfolio as well. So we've got all of that going on, and here we are today.
Cool. So you're not busy at all. So it's cool. Just
right.
Probably play video games all day. Awesome.
Yeah. And then I just did this kind of the same thing you're doing. Is I started to take YouTube really seriously. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that's a new full-time job too.
Jeez,
Right?
I didn't realize it. I see like these YouTubers, man. I give them so much credit. They make it look so easy. And even like the production of the video, it's like, maybe you just buy a nice camera and you get good lighting. No, you need the camera. You need awesome editing. You need, the angles, the way that you shoot things, the audio. This speaker doesn't match with the recorder. It's insane how much things go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And with so many people on YouTube now, it's like the preparation that has to go in before you even shoot the video, so you can, so the algorithm will like you and actually share your video with other people. Yeah. That's a whole full-time job. So
yeah,
I don't know if I was biting off there when I got that.
So we're all staying busy, but that's awesome, man. I mean, so many golden nuggets just in your own story. Kind of like, you did so well with music. You were making money. Then you went to the groceries. And then you still found it in yourself to get out of that world. I'm sure in your mind at the time, you're like, I'm not going to bag groceries forever. But there's some people that get lost in that and they just stay there for a long time. They get down on themselves. And it's natural, right? You come up, you come down. But it's like, I love what makes people tick of like, what got you out of that? Like, and you're like, what were you thinking at that time that you're like, all right, I'm bagging groceries. My manager told me about real estate. Like, what got you like out of bed and you're like, all right, let me go learn this. Let me read this book. Let me do this. Like what happened there?
Well, it's funny that you said that, because that wasn't like, that was a big epiphany for me at one moment, bagging groceries, because the music business, and I just transitioned right out of, I did a little bit in high school. I went into the Marine Corps, and then I was still involved in music while I was in the Marine Corps, and no one could really figure out how I was doing that, but I did. And as soon as I got out, I went full steam ahead and built something really nice for myself. But it wasn't work. Like, I didn't have to get up and set goals and exercise discipline and,
right.
And go and check off tasks and to-do lists. Like, I just did what I did, and I was very fortunate that people liked what I did and paid me for it. So when all that went away, I was, it took me about 6 months to realize, wow, nobody is coming to rescue me. This life thing isn't as easy as what my first round was. Like, it's not as the experience. And so there was no shortage of people to cry on their shoulders, and everyone would listen to you. Everyone would pat on your back, and people would give you the old advice. It'll be okay. Things will turn around for you. But you're hearing this from other people that are bagging groceries right alongside you, So it's
like, I don't know, dude.
You don't get a lot of empathy. It's like, I just made 7 figures last year, and now I'm sitting next to you making $7 an hour. And people are like, oh yeah, poor guy.
The rule of 7, right? The rule of 7.
Yeah. And I just kind of woke up one day and realized there was a very monumental moment. They were short-handed on the grocery clerks. So I got promoted that day.
Ooh.
Check the groceries. Exactly. Promotion with no increase in pay though. But at least I felt a little bit higher above on the food chain. And I remember a lady came through, typical, what you would probably pick your stereotypical, like soccer mom. Okay. So she's all dressed in her workout gear. Like, she just came from tennis lessons. She had her makeup perfect. She had her dripping gold earrings. She's on the phone. She had the baby stroller with like the 2x2 or whatever. The thing for the twins. It was a big mess, a big scene. And while I was done checking her groceries, she was still on the phone. I gave her the total, and she opens up her wallet, and out of her wallet fell the little ATM receipt. And I remember to this day, it was $256,000 was the bank balance on that ATM receipt. I couldn't help but sneak a look. But I saw that, and it really hit me, because that was a really significant number when I was in the music business, because that's when it signified that it was time to transfer money. And I was just thinking, wow, it's been about 9 months since I've seen that balance in my bank account, and doing what I'm doing right now, I'll probably never see it again.
No.
And that's where I was like, okay, I got to do
That's
something.
when you took action.
Yep. And that was a rough day. It was a good day, but it was a really bitter day at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's where the grocery store said, Matt, you have an attitude problem. We need to talk. So we had that conversation, and that's where the whole real estate thing evolved from that. Like, it was almost a disciplinary conversation, and it really turned my whole life around.
It'd be awesome to like find that lady and make her a lender now or something, like, thank you for your receipt.
Yeah.
One, I want to thank you too. Do you want to be a lender? Right? Something
Yeah,
like that.
that'd
Investor.
be interesting.
That's funny. That's awesome, man. So yeah, I also like to ask. So I always like to ask what makes people tick, and kind of like what made you tick. What I'm hearing was it was like one. It was a compilation of events, right? You were there 9 months. You had done well. So you probably in your mind you're like, crap, this sucks. Crap, this sucks. Crap, this sucks. And then that one thing, like you see the receipt, that number was like shit. That was the number when I used to transfer money. I had that much money before, and you're like, all right, this is it. Now that was you like 10 years ago or so. What was Matt like in like high school, or what was he like kind of like growing up? Were you a shy kid? Were you always like entrepreneurial? Did you what like if we would have met when you were 15 years old, like what kind of kid was Matt?
15. Okay, so I was in the band, so I played the trumpet.
Okay.
I was in musical theater, and what happened right then was we were doing flash dance. Like that's what the school was doing.
Is that when like people dance randomly at a time or something?
No, those are flash mobs.
Oh, okay.
No, the movie Flash Dance.
Oh, okay. No,
You're a really young guy, Ro.
Yeah.
But there's a movie called Flash Dance, and it was an 80s phenomenon. It was like a big deal.
Okay.
And there was a scene, like the grand finale, that was called for break dancers. And at that time, I mean, people barely knew what breakdancing was. I mean, Flashdance, the movie, was a lot of people's very first exposure to breaking and b-boying, and so our teacher had gone to quote unquote the other side of the tracks to recruit a high school kid over there to come over to teach myself and this other guy on how to break dance for the finale.
Right.
And that was probably 15, 16 years old. And he had brought over his, oh my God, do I say it? He brought over his boom box.
Like this is carrying it like
totally, man. That was it. That was it. It's funny to even say it because it's like a punchline these days. But those were real. Those big giant radios were real.
So you're always pretty musically inclined.
Say again?
You're always pretty musically inclined.
Yeah, I think I was. But boy, when the music that we would like listen to during rehearsal, that's what really grabbed me. And so
damn, pretty interesting.
Going over the next couple years, being into hip hop in Irvine, California, if anyone knows what that's like, it's kind of think where the original yuppie was born. And and it wasn't cool. Like I was an outcast in high school. It wasn't like I was called poser and faker and loser. I was called all kinds of things, and I'm not sad about it. I wasn't like playing victim or anything, but it wasn't cool to like hip hop. I mean, you were a unique individual if you were into hip hop.
Interesting.
So that's what that was like then.
So Matt, 15, 16 years old, into music, into hip hop. So you weren't at all like at that time, like looking to start businesses or selling, or were you like did you start working when you were young?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a little bit cliche. I'm the guy that had the lemonade stand. I did sell the baseball cards. Okay. I did sell candy at school. I did sell magazine subscriptions door to door. Like I did all that when I was a kid. I had a newspaper route. That's funny. Like kids used to put all these papers on their handlebars and drive through the neighborhood and and deliver newspapers to the houses. That was a thing.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But yeah, I made a terrible employee. I'd always looked at the boss and just kind of thought they were doing a terrible job, and always saw ways that how it could be improved. And so
gotcha.
There was a few jobs where I actually became competitors of my boss just because I felt
just because
I was like, you're not doing it right. When I started my record label, that's how that started. I worked for a record label.
Gotcha.
And the boss was never there except on Thursday afternoons to come in and pick up his check. So the FedEx guy would come and drop off the check. He would come in, pick it up, and take off and enjoy the rest of his day. And I was the one running the company. I was like, well, I could run my own company, and I could be there on Thursdays to pick up the check. And that's how that started.
That's crazy. So yeah, the reason like I asked that question of kind of like, who were you when you were younger? Because some people watching this, or some people who are now reading a lot of self-help books and watching YouTube and watching gurus or whatever, they're always like, oh, but this guru or this person was always, you know, with the lemonade stand since he was 10, or this person was always an entrepreneur, or this person, his family was on. And it's not always like that. I believe that people can become entrepreneurs. It doesn't mean that you're born an entrepreneurial mind. You can definitely become an entrepreneur, develop the habits that quote unquote entrepreneurs or business owners have. And that's kind of what I wanted to see. So you always had that spirit, right? You were into music. You always had the spirit of like kind of doing your own thing. You did work jobs. So it wasn't like right away you started your own companies forever.
Yeah, it was always a Band-Aid job though. You know,
It was only a Band-Aid job. I guess like what advice would you give people who weren't starting the lemonade stands or throwing paper or selling baseball cards? Like if, let's say that's like their mental limit right now. They're like, man, but I haven't always been like that. So what would you tell that person if they do want to start a wholesale business or they do want to get into their own business?
First thing I would say, the first thing that came to mind is that you better figure it out, because you probably don't have a shot at any sort of financial freedom unless you do, right?
Got it.
So I think that's one thing. Second thing is there's a lot of glamour, I guess, or I don't know what's the right word, but there's a lot of
like hype or something.
Very attractive to consider yourself being your own boss, right? To be in charge and you call the shots and you get to dictate what you do with your life. But I think when people make that transition from employee to employer, being their own boss,
right?
They kind of forget and lose focus that they're also their own employee.
Yeah.
Right? They're their own boss, but don't forget who you're the boss of. You still need a worker. And I think that going in and understanding that, because, you know, if you got a bull crap job right now, you go in, you report 8 to 5, or else you're not going to get a paycheck. You do what your boss tells you to do, or you're not going to get a paycheck. Correct. So if you're going to make this transition from employee to employer, you still have to report 8 to 5, and you're not going to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
You still have to do the activities and be accountable, or else you're not going to get a paycheck. Right. And I think that's a distinction that needs to be really understood before somebody makes that leap to full-time entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you know what's funny is like once you get into your own business and you're fortunate enough and you do well enough to maybe hire 1 or 2 people, etc. Sometimes like unknowingly they become your boss. You start working for them and you're the, you know, quote unquote boss or owner or whatever. I'm sure like you have an assistant, you know, we have an assistant. She like tells me what to do. I'm like, what the heck? But it's like, you know, it's like a natural evolution. It's so funny when you like look back and see things. You're like, hey, in my mind, I thought being a boss or a business owner was like, you know, me up here and pointing fingers. And it's actually not, or at least the good leaders are not, you know, I would
look at that role as, one, you have a real business.
Yeah.
If that's the dynamic in your business. And second, you've got a good assistant or good employees if that's the dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you could have had me as an employee and me just kind of hide and BS with you all day long, right? Yeah. But you have someone that gives a crap, and so that's good. I think you're on the right track if that's your situation.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's just people, I guess, like it's like you were saying, people have like this image. I got a good question I always like to ask. In business or in life, what was the biggest lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Oh man,
I know it's probably a ton, right? You know, that's like a loaded question, man. But
I could say like something I say on the podcast all the time, and I just fell victim to it myself here in the last 12 months. And I think it's looking through your business and recognizing all your single points of failure. You know, is there a key system that if that system breaks, you're toast? Or a vendor, if that vendor decides to change their mind or change prices or, you know, close down shop, or is that going to affect you? How's that going to impact you? Or you got an employee that just you have way too much reliability on, right? So I think single point of failure is one thing.
That's good.
Second thing, and again, this one's a tough one to learn, because we all want to be business owners and we all want to we want to have the business run. We want the system to run with or without us.
Right.
And I think people get confused with, and I certainly have many times, they confuse delegation with abdication, right? So You can delegate a task,
Right.
but it doesn't, and you can manage it and watch and someone else will perform it, but don't detach yourself and just go do something else and forget about it. That's abdication, right? So I think it can be a big lesson. I think even my real estate business, every dime I've ever lost in real estate, and I've had a couple big losses in my career. They've all been a result of that. Like I abdicated to a contractor, or I abdicated to a property manager. And I just said, you handle it. Okay.
And then you completely pull back.
Completely pulled out. And I was like, I just trust that they're going to do their job. And like, that's dangerous.
That's
so we don't do that anymore either. So
that's good. I remember you did a podcast of, I think like the 10 biggest mistakes or the 10 lessons or something like that. It was like a 2-part series. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I remember, I think the first one was, it took me too long to get a bookkeeper or something like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of that podcast? Do you remember?
I do. I've said that a few times for sure.
Yeah. And I remember I listened to it. I wrote down all the 10 things. I'm like, all right, for the next month, this is all I'm going to focus on, is making sure I don't make these mistakes.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I got a bookkeeper. I like followed kind of what you said. So I think, I don't know, that's also a reason I wanted to start a podcast or something, things like that. Even you didn't know that because I never reached out and told you, hey, this helped me so much. But I hopefully have the intention of people listening to interviews like this, getting information from me and from you, and applying it, even not telling me, but helping somebody save, months, years, weeks of time and energy. So I think that was pretty cool. So definitely listen to that podcast. Hopefully, maybe if you find it or something, we could put on the show notes so people can listen to it.
Boy, out of 700 episodes, I don't know which one it is.
All right, so forget that. Just Google it. All right. So all this stuff, becoming successful and, you're really big on like cash flow, being free of the rat race. Mm-hmm. What are some of like the top habits you think someone should develop to get there, to be kind of like free of the rat race?
I think first thing is find someone who has the life you want, right?
Okay.
I think that's who you should be taking your advice from. Ignore everybody else.
Okay.
If they don't have the result that you're looking for, then, go find someone that does. I think first. Get a mentor, get a coach, pay one if you have to. There's all different resources and ways that you can get somebody to look up to. But I think that's key. Second is surround yourself with people that are on the similar or same path as you.
Okay.
I think being surrounded by like-minded people, and particularly you don't want to be the big fish in the pond. You want to be the smaller fish.
Yep.
I think that's key. Third thing would be to implement and be consistent. And you take your feedback and you modify as you go. It's not going to be a straight line to get there. And ultimately, the main focus should be, how can I create a residual income? That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Is, with every transaction we do in business, whether it's real estate or anything else, you're faced with that decision. Do I flip it for cash or do I hold it for cash flow?
Yeah.
And that can be, flipping houses and wholesaling specifically in this type of environment. When you get a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 check, that's half of your salary for most people the first time they got that check. And what they don't realize, they feel like they're being successful. They feel like they're moving forward, but you're actually slowing yourself down if financial freedom is your goal, right? So that holding onto that house for that $250, $300 a month in cash flow, if you extrapolate that out over 3 years and you held everything over 3 years, or you flipped everything over 3 years, there's no comparison on how much further you'll be if you held everything. So I think all of that combined up is just be streams of income focused.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And I feel like that happens to most wholesalers who start to make some money. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, the $300-$400 a month is cool, but let me just flip 3 of them and I'll make 60 or 40,000 a month, and it's going to happen forever. And that 40 is going to turn into 3 to 80, and then that 80 is going to turn into 300, and usually doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah, and even if it does, you never stop working.
Yeah.
You just have a high paying job,
right?
But you'll never be able to stop.
Yeah, and then and that's what you're you're really big on is every time I listen to your podcast or hear anything that you're on, it's always like, you always say, would you rather piles of cash or streams of cash?
Streams of cash, right.
And the streams of cash is what's going to make you wealthy and be able to travel and hang out with family and kind of influence as much as possible.
It's just so boring in the beginning that no one opts for it, right?
But it's crazy. I feel like it could be, it's boring, but I feel like it's a lot of fun. Maybe once you start cashing the checks, it becomes fun. You're like, it's boring, but it's like, crap, I'm collecting the money. It's kind of nice.
Well, it's that first one, right?
Yeah.
You get that $200, $300 of cash flow and you're like, this isn't even going to move the needle in my life, right? This is not even going to register. So no one ever opts for that first one. But if you want to get to $1,000 of cash flow or 2,000 or 10,000, you have to get the first one done, right? Or else you got nothing to add it to.
Yeah. Love that. Dude, Matt, so I like to ask, I know some of these questions might be unorthodox or whatever, but maybe what's something that you wish people knew about you?
I would say, I think I care to a fault sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
I really, whether they're business partners or they're lenders or they're students or they're podcast listeners, like if they're having a bad time, that I take that home with me, and
gotcha.
keep me awake. We were just talking. We're here, started our recording here 30 minutes late because I was up at 3 this morning just as my brain wouldn't stop working. And, there's some things I have to go and solve. And some of the things aren't even like necessarily my responsibility.
Right.
You'll have this natural obligation inside. And I don't know if I wish I knew people knew that about me, but that was the first thing that came to mind is that, it hurts when you see people call your stuff a scam or your BS products and stuff like that. And the posts and in the iTunes things, I'm just like, you have no idea. You have no idea of how much goes into this and how real it is and how I'm a practitioner. I do what I say, I teach, and I built this whole thing because of what I'm teaching. I mean, what I taught in there is how I built what I have, and I'm sharing this information, and I'm being very generous, and I don't hold anything back. I don't like lock things up that I don't share on the podcast or in YouTube inside of a members area. It's all the same, right? I just curate it inside of a members area, so it's all nice and neatly organized there.
Yeah.
But so I guess that would be one thing.
Yeah, people care, and that's good. I mean, I remember that happened to me a lot when I first started hiring people, and when like I had an expectation and they didn't meet it, and they were like kind of like bummed out that they didn't get it. I would like really take it home, and same thing. Like I'd be like, no, like this has to work. What's going on? And you have 2-hour conversations long with your people, and then sometimes you just realize it's just maybe a system problem, maybe it's a people problem, maybe it's, and so maybe not to the extent that you're talking about, but I completely kind of understand where you're coming from. I think it's
you just said that, when you become a boss and now your employees are telling you what to do, right?
Yeah.
There's another aspect there. I've got 6 full-time employees and I got, another 6 virtual assistants.
Wow.
And so that payroll comes around twice a month, and I'm always thinking about that. Like, oh my God, and I don't even care if I'm going to pay myself. I want to make sure that they all get paid. And there might be 2 or 3 times a year where it gets a little hairy sometimes, where cash flow is not the way it's supposed to be. And I feel like, God, it would be the worst thing in the world for me to have the conversation with one of my employees, say, sorry, your check's going to be a little late this month.
Yeah.
Hey, knock on wood, God forbid it's never happened. But I think about that, and I play that little movie that goes on in my head, and it freaks me out sometimes.
Yeah, that's scary. I saw an interview with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates was saying that his biggest worry was when he started hiring his friends, and his vendors, the people or his clients were going out of business. They couldn't pay him, so he couldn't pay his people, and he was like physically worried, and he started getting hurt, like ill, and he said he spoke to Warren, and Warren said, leave a year of cash reserves. And he's like, oh, so we left about 1.2 billion. I think that's enough for the next year. So that story just kind of reminded me of that. I guess not all of us are in that position, but
well, it's all in context. I mean, for him, it's 1.2 billion. He needs to feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he's like nervous about it. And you're like, why are you nervous about pay? You got all this money. You're like, but you don't understand what the overhead is, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I love that. So you're big in the education world, the podcasting and all that stuff, and that takes a ton of energy and time. But what are some of the who are some of the people maybe you listen to their podcasts, or what are some books or authors that you like to read that kind of influence you to behave and do certain things?
Mm-hmm. Someone I'm really listening to a lot is Roland Frazier.
Oh yeah, awesome guy.
Yeah, one of the founders of Digital Marketer. I
Yeah,
really like his podcast.
super cool dude.
Mike Dillard, I've been listening to a lot lately.
Oh yeah,
I think he's got some really good guests.
that's a self-made man guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got good guests and he asks good questions. So I really enjoy that. I listen to First Take every day. I listen to Pardon the Interruption, ESPN stuff.
Okay.
Let's see. I just discovered these guys, Hustle and Flowchart. Have you heard of those guys?
No, Hustle and Flowchart.
They're marketing guys. I'm really into the marketing, and what's really been cool is how we've been able to take all of this internet marketing concepts as we're building the education, and we've found parallels in every part of us driving motivated seller leads. So it's made a big impact in our real estate business as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the marketing world's so crazy now that I'm little by little starting to get into YouTube and info. I'm not so heavy into it yet, but I'm like, I thought it's like what you said, like, okay, there's a portal with videos, you make it and you sell it. Great. But then it's like, okay, the portal, what videos do you make? How do you sell it? There's ads. What? Who? Oh, you got to target now. Oh, it costs $80 per acquisition. And then how much do you make? But wait, you got to pay. It's like, what the heck? You don't really think about that.
Right.
And it's like you said, like some people, they write these bad reviews. They don't know like really how much it takes to go.
Yeah, they have no idea. And what are they doing with their life? They're probably bagging groceries.
Cool, man. So yeah, this is the last like kind of few questions. There's something I'd love to ask real estate entrepreneurs. Where do you feel is the $100 million play in real estate, specifically real estate investing?
I'm going to just go to demographics with the baby boomers reaching the age that they're reaching and getting old. I think senior assisted living is probably where the demographics are going to really explode that industry.
Yeah, very interesting.
Like if you just follow and then right behind, in each generation is a little bit bigger than the previous. So that's not going to disappear. But if you look back at the baby boomers, a good study is, Gerber baby food became the household name that it is because of the baby boomers, because there was so much population there that was consuming baby food. And then it went through and the same thing happened to Levi Strauss with Levi jeans, and the same thing happened to the Ford Mustang. And the same thing happened to the minivan, right? And so as the baby boomers have aged, there's so many of them that they've impacted these certain industries. And I see that same thing happening with senior living. So
that's a really good, interesting answer. Probably the best, like most specific answer I've gotten so far. And so I guess like your thought would be like follow the baby boomers and like build facilities.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people going into that right now where they're in the real estate game, like they're owning the real estate, but it's the business that they're running inside of the real estate, right?
Interesting.
Senior living. Yep.
That's awesome. That was a great answer. Cool, man. And then last thing. So what is like one, you're talking to the very new wholesaler, the very new investor. They want to they want to wholesale their first deal or find their first deal. Let's say they want to keep it or whatever. They want to find a good discounted property. What is like one tactical, practical move or tip you can give them right now, June 2019, that you feel would get their first deal as quickly as possible?
Okay, first you got to go off market, right? Okay. So to get a really discounted property, you're gonna have to find somebody with a problem.
Yep.
So I would say look for the problems, follow the problems, the profit will follow. And those types of problems are, drug, disease, death, divorce, bankruptcy, code violations, all that kind of stuff. So you have to go offline and off market and interact directly with the seller.
Okay.
And how I got started, I don't know if this is the best way, but it's certainly something that you can do. They all take work.
Yeah.
I got started and I was really desperate. I just recognized, I just woke up one day. It's like, God, there's these classified ads and you got all of these people with houses for sale. And you got all these people that have houses wanted. I just started calling them up and playing matchmaker.
Mm.
And what eventually happened and what that turned into was a bunch of people that had these turnkey properties, and it wasn't even called turnkey at the time, but they had these rentals that they were trying to sell as rentals, and they couldn't find buyers. So I said, well, I'm going to a RIA club tonight. Would you mind if I shared your property with people? And if I found a buyer, would there be room for, a marketing fee for me? And well, sure. Yeah. Bring me a buyer. And that's what I did. I made a flyer, put a picture of their property on there, put all of my own contact information on there, and just started going to RIA meetings. And I started going to networking events, and I started, being the middleman, what today is called an aggregator. And that's how I started selling properties without me having to go out and buy any.
That's good. That's good. So basically what he's getting at, number one, what I heard there is no excuses, right? You didn't put it under contract. You didn't do it. You figured, okay, you're selling one. I'm going to go to a real estate event that people want to buy them. I'll just link it, right? No excuses. I'm sure you don't like excuses. I love, you can't deposit excuses is a big thing I have in my office. But what I heard there is number one, no excuses. Number two, just find somebody who wants to sell, maybe a classified ad, a newspaper, Craigslist. I don't know if there's any other back page, like any other big classified ads. Mm-hmm. Call them up, say, hey, you still want to sell it? Yeah. Cool. Look, I could be your buyer, or maybe I'm going somewhere where 10 other investors are at tonight. Is it okay if I market it and then you pay me something?
Yep.
That's a great way because you don't really have any risk. You don't have anything wrong.
Yeah. You got nothing to lose. And you know what happened? Because that's how I got started, and I was wholesaling. I didn't even know I was wholesaling. But what happened there indirectly, you're becoming somebody of value for that person that has the property for sale.
Right.
But you know what really happened, Raul, is when you go and talk to those 10 investors and share that property with, and you do that repeatedly, all of a sudden you're inside of that little circle of 10 investors. Wow, Raul's like the hustler. He's always got a deal. He's always doing this and doing that. And when you become that person and that reputation gets attached to you, it attracts other buyers. It attracts other sellers. It attracts money. It attracts lenders. Because by doing that, that's how I got my first private lender. So a little girl, I can remember her vividly. She came up and she says, I have $100,000. I just inherited it, and I want to put it in real estate. If you'll do this with me, I'll split whatever profit we make.
Okay.
And that's how I got my first deal. And that was just by me being present. That's happened countless times since.
Right.
But just from that one little practice and being the action taker inside of those types of groups, everybody wanted to work with you because you proved yourself that you know what you're doing and you're hustling.
Shoot. Love that, man. That's a great one. That's also another response I haven't gotten. So beast. This is why you got to listen to this guy, right?
It's funny. Desperation, they say, is the mother of invention, right? And there were moments in my life where I was pretty desperate.
So it's all a gift. It's all the way you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Yeah. So before you kind of tell us how we can find you, what's the next big thing that you and your team are working on, both in the info or your real estate side? Is there anything kind of big that you feel like it'd be good for the listeners to hear or to share?
Yeah, there's something I'm doing. I'm getting ready to move. I'm moving to Nevada. Ooh. And I have this idea that I'm going to do. I'm going to execute. I'm going to start on August 15th. When is this airing, or is it coming out right away?
This will probably air, in a week.
Oh, okay. So you'll have it heads up. I've never shared this with anybody, so this is world premiere.
Nice. I love it.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to submit to my own 30-day challenge where I'm going to take $1,000 and work for 30 days. And I'm going to document all 30 days, and we'll see what we get. How much? My goal is to flip at least one property for 10 grand or get a seller financed property in that 30 days.
So you're pretty much going to start your wholesale thing with $1,000.
Yep. And I've got a couple in this market. The reason I'm choosing this market. Well, one, I'm moving there, but secondly, I've got a couple people, the students that came through, and they quit. They said, "Oh, it's too hard here." So I'm going to go and, indirectly prove them wrong.
And make it that's a really cool idea. I love that. And I guess you're going to film it. You're going to put it on YouTube, or you're going to make.
Yeah, it's going to be me and my cell phone. Yeah. Okay. And then we'll see what happens. So I'm really going to put my butt on the line there and show that I still got what it takes.
I love it.
Yep.
Maybe in a couple months. You said you're going to do that in August, so probably you'll be done in September.
Starting August 15th, I'll be done September 15th. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe like October, November or something. We could schedule something, and I would like to hear what happened, and I'm sure the listeners would like to hear.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, where can so thanks again for all the information. Man, you shared some really awesome stuff. Where can people find you? How can you help them out? How can Matt help?
So if you're listening to this podcast, you obviously know how to find podcasts. So I have the Epic Real Estate Investing Show.
Yep.
And we just started our 9th year. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And then I got this little small kind of test program going on. It's called, it's helping people get their first or their next deal using little to no money. And it's totally free. It's actually better than free. We're paying people to complete the course at this moment. And that's at freerealestateinvestingcourse.com. And some of the strategies I just shared with you today are inside of there and a whole lot more. So if they want to take that on, that's where it is. Or if you just want to listen to the show, it's the Epic Real Estate Investing Show.
And on YouTube, you are Epic Real Estate too on YouTube?
Yeah, it's we have a forwarding domain. You can go to epicrei.tv.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll put as many links as I can find on the show notes so people could click and find you.
Awesome.
Definitely, guys, I'd highly recommend following Matt. Me and a couple other guys that have been doing this business for a few years. Follow him, gone to his events. I know you do a bunch of events as well. So I guess just sign up to his website or something and you'll get news on his events. I know you do a lot of events in Vegas and
yeah. So the next one's coming up. Well, this is coming out right away. Epicintensive.com, and the next one is in Los Angeles, middle of July.
Awesome, man. Awesome, love it, guys. So thanks again, Matt, and everyone. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm Raul Balufe. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear some more, you can always hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and one love, guys. Thanks again, Matt. We'll be in touch. Peace.
Take care.
Thanks.